Hi everyone, happy Tuesday. Oh, here I am showing the watercolors we will be trying today, which is the Watercolor Confections palette, the Vintage Pastel that was gifted to me by Tammy. I believe it was for my birthday. And some new watercolor brushes that were recommended as good budget watercolor brushes by Lindsay the Frugal Crafter. I did snag these during Amazon Prime Day. And yeah, so this picture. So here at Kids and Caboodles, we like to show the bad days as well as the good ones. Meaning, this picture got really close to being ripped out of the book and used as kindling for a bonfire. I Yeah, after the success of my sunflower kitty this weekend, this was just a disaster from this point. I mean, from point A on, I made a couple of mistakes, and so I figured since these are demos and not tutorials, that it would be good to show this because I I think I redeemed it. It's definitely not one of my favorites, but it is something to where I feel like the picture is complete. It looks decent. It's not something that I would just I don't know, I didn't want to give up on this picture. So this is a good lesson in perseverance, perhaps. Show y'all some of the things I did to try to rescue this picture. Okay, lesson number one for Michelle's guide to using watercolors. I've talked at length about using satin glazing liquid, how it allows the pigment to go farther on the paper, gives you more time before it dries. And in my inherent genius, I decided not to pre-treat this page. My logic was that I wanted to use colored pencil and satin. I struggle with colored pencil and satin glazing liquid. So I thought, well, I just won't treat the page. It'll be fine. And the thing I should have realized is I was going to have to go around all these little uh, flowers and doodads on the outside and try to create a smooth background in doing that. And the only way I would have been successful in that is if I had used satin glazing liquid, at least on everything but the watch itself. So yeah, you can see I'm getting a pretty streaky mess on here. I was getting madder and madder. I was already in a mood when I started this. And as you can see, I suddenly hit the point where I said, forget it. I'm not going to get a smooth application if I don't just paint over the flowers and the leaves and everything with the purple. It's just everything but the watch is going to get painted over. And I said I will fix it later. And I was like, this is the only way I'm going to be able to get a smooth look on the background. So we're just paint over all of it. We'll just sort it out later. So this is lesson number one here. I should have at least treated everything but the watch with satin glazing liquid. Because at the end of the day, I added some pencil to it, but it really wasn't a whole lot of pencil to this by the time I got done with it, partially because I had borked it up so much. And here I am. It bled a little bit at the top. It didn't bleed through. It just, because I was being messy at the top of the page. But I think the page behind it I'm going to do as a black background, so it'll be fine. But this is not a color palette I'm super comfortable with anyway. That's the reason I wanted to try this. This was a challenge. This is a buddy color that Tammy Colors 2 and I are doing. This is, if I didn't mention, I'm sure you saw, out of Summer Nights by Hanna Karlzon. And I've seen so many pretty, gorgeous pictures done of this particular page. And I was like, you know, this is the only vintage watercolors set I had, so I was like, I want to try it out. I want to challenge myself with this different palette because I'm not a pastel person. I'm definitely not usually a vintage pastel person. I'm more bright, vibrant colors. But I looked at the palette and I thought that would be perfect for this page. And then I worked it up. And I'm just getting madder and madder as I'm doing this. You can see the aggression in the brush strokes. You can just see the aggression in the brush strokes. It's so funny to me. It's funny now that I've recovered it. And but at the time it was not funny. It was not funny at all. If you watched my color and chat Sunday, you'll know that I am having my position with the company I've been with is going away due to restructuring, so I'm having to basically start the job search. I even went over part of the watch. I was so over it at this point. I was like, it's going to have a smooth background. It may look awful, but it's going to have at least a fairly smooth looking background. And and I don't know why in my head I do watercolor and then expect a smooth background, because that's not really how you can do it, but it's not as easy. Like, I should have used acrylic paint, but I wanted to make this watercolor set work, template or color palette work on this page. So this is me being stubborn. Anyway, so I wasn't in a great mood. Anyway, though Saturday I was feeling pretty good because that other picture turned out so well, and then this happened and it was just like, oh boy. It's just funny to me how I went from one of my best pictures to like one of my, probably, I wouldn't say worst pictures, but okay, yeah, it's pretty bad. I gotta say, not, I don't know. I'm not. I'm okay with it, and I usually like my pictures. So if I'm just okay with it, then I'm not. It's definitely not one of my favorites. So yes, this was my first mistake. If you are going to use watercolor on a background, and you need that extra time for the watercolor to stay wet on the paper, if you're going around a lot of little nooks and crannies like would have been on this page, you probably want to use some sort of paper treatment. So I banked on the fact that the way this paper is, once you put the pigment down, it'll move some, but not a lot, unless you add a big honking bunch of water to it. But I was banking on the fact that it wouldn't move that much. I figured if I could wait, give it time to dry, then go over the flowers and the leaves with the colors that I intended, they would be darker, but I could still manage to come out okay. It wouldn't, again, it would be serviceable. So here I am covering the actual watch itself. So if you have this palette, I use the soft lilac for the background, which, by the way, looks way lighter than it did on this card. It's interesting to me how different colors swatch on different types of paper, and it looked a lot darker on the card that came with it and that I swatched, but here it's more of a lilac rather than, and it says soft lilac, so this is probably actually more true to color here. And then I use the Golden Globe for the watch. The inside I use Suede. And I splashed so much water on there that I actually started to get the paper to pill. And I don't think I've ever had that happen with Hanna Karlzon paper. So you'll see me come through in a minute and dab at it. And that's why, because I was like, whoops, I worked it too much with the brush. And yep, oop, there it went. So was able to brush it off. No big whoop. I just immediately stopped the moment that happened and realized right now the thing I need to do is let it dry. So yep, I tacked it with the heat gun, before I put any of the other layers on, I attacked it with a heat gun and attacked it like I just beat the book with it. I tell you, I was ready. I was ready. But I needed it to be completely dry so that I could put the layer of watercolor I wanted on the flowers and the leaves, and that they wouldn't mix with the layer underneath. Again, with this type of paper, you don't get a lot of movement with the, like here I'm wetting that layer underneath, but the purple's not mixing because it's not really, it's not watercolor paper. It's heavier textured paper, but it's not really watercolor paper. So that was one thing I knew would happen since I didn't treat the paper, and that I was trying to use to my advantage. So I think I ended up using all the colors except I don't think I didn't use the charcoal, which is a really nice black color. However, like the lilac, it may have actually wound up being lighter on this page, so it may not have wound up being the true black I would have necessarily wanted. So when I should have used satin glazing liquid, didn't do that. Then when I realized my mistake, I should have stopped before I painted over the floral sections and just went ahead and blacked out the background with acrylic paint and just took the time to do that. That probably would have been the better solution. However, this turned, I guess, from a demo to an experiment. I guess that's what we're calling it. It's Doodle Robot says she's always doing experiments on her pages, and that's kind of what this turned into, because I was like, what's gonna happen when I put a different watercolor layer over that purple on this paper? So this became an experiment. And so I had two major moments I completely chuffed this up, like big time, like just completely, as I said, borked it up. And the first one, of course, was the background. And the second one will come up in a little bit. I may actually speed up this part once we get past this, because I'm running out of things to say here. But as you can see, here I'm using the sage. It is actually doing pretty well. Like I said, it's going to dry darker because it has that purple tone behind it. But I figured between that and the pencils, I could make it work. Now, a lot of the issues that happened, I'm not blaming the watercolor set. This is totally user error. I'm not blaming the brushes. I'm not blaming the watercolor itself. I'm blaming myself on this one. So the colors I still like, and I do want to use this on an actual treated page now, just to see how different it is. One thing though I did note, and it was probably because of how thick I was putting down the paint, was it did dull the line art a little bit. Now again, I believe this is due to user error and my attempt to cover up that purple as much as I could. I went thicker than I normally would on a watercolor base, and thus, because of the more opaque paint, it's going to make the line art more transparent. So yeah, in trying to fix that, I made things worse. So much worse. But as you see, the green was going pretty well. So I guess this is one of my takeaways from this is that as long as I keep it a pretty heavy, low on water layer, I can layer over watercolor in certain untreated books. Not that I would recommend that, Not that I think that's a good idea, but if you find yourself in this kind of situation, such as it were, such as I'm in, there's one thing that you could do. So I'm going to speed this portion up because I've kind of run out of things to talk about till we get to the next part, and put the rest of it to music, and then we'll move on to my second big mistake of the day. All right, so now I have pulled out my Derwent Color Soft pencils to see if how this goes. I have, I believe, mint and cool mint or something like that. I will put the pencil names in the description. Not sure if those would be super helpful in this, but at least I'll have it documented. Ooh, hey, I got my pen, my Final Boss pen from Too Many Games. They didn't have them ready when I was there, so very cool. Anyway, all right, so here I am. I'm using, actually, I come in with some lichen green too, to darken it up a bit. And I use a gray white, I think, yeah, I used a gray white on the base, then used the mint and cool mint on top. The gray white was to try to help, again, kind of suppress some of that purple. And then the lichen green, I came in just to give it a little bit darker look. And so didn't look terrible. I come in with a lichen here in a little while. Doesn't look terrible. Again, the line art is looking a little dull just due to the pencil pressure and the thickness of the watercolor. And so genius me thinks I have a solution for it. And boy oh boy. Y'all, yeah. So here we go, along with coloring this in. And so I guess while we're doing this, I hope everyone's beginning of the week is going well. I have been getting some things accomplished. I am full of nervous energy, I think, right now. I noticed last night I had some real trouble sleeping, and I'm kind of alternating between feeling restless and just nervous energy because of everything going on. So I actually went ahead and, like I said, started working on this Sunday, and then wrapped it up Monday, this Monday evening. Wrapped it up Monday evening, just so I could go ahead and have this out for Tuesday. Again, I do not consider this a demo. I do not recommend this as a tutorial or a how-to or even a color along. Here I am with the Lichen green. That actually helps darken it up just a bit. But I want you guys to see the bad with the good. So, and just things, there's a lot of things that can be salvageable if you really just stuck on it like me. I just didn't have the heart to call this a useless page and put a big X on it, or and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people just don't want to go through all that trouble, and I understand that too. So my genius idea was to use a Pitt artist pen to go around the leaves with the outline. And the one I selected, I thought was going to have a thinner line to it, and it does not. It is rather a thick line. And it was right about this moment that she realized she effed up. But there was what was there to do? At this point, really and truly, I was about to rip it out and just start a fire with it. I was so mad. I don't know why I decided to do something so randomly. Usually I'm a little more cautious about elements I introduce to a page. I don't know why. Again, I just wasn't in a good mindset probably for this page, and I was just like, oh, okay, we'll try this, it'll be fine. And it wasn't. It was way too thick a line. I should have found a smaller point. But at this point, it was either be done with it and walk away, or go, there's nowhere to go but forward, or to just wipe it completely and never look at it again. And I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to do that. So I just kept going. I was in such shock and so frustrated right here, and it was like I didn't know what else to do but just keep on doing it, because it wasn't like I could just erase what was already there, right? I mean, that was the only thing I knew to do, was to just keep going with it, right? And I would say if you get this frustrated, more than likely I would recommend you just walk away for a while from it. I was very lucky that I did. Usually, here I am just stewing. I can feel it through the screen, can't you? Can't you just feel the anger? Every word you can possibly imagine that YouTube would ding me for crossed my mind, and then some. And then, like I said, I should have gotten up and walked away. Typically, I would have just started madly scribbling with that black marker and would have just said, that's it, I'm done, and it would have just been, you know, nothing could have brought it back. But somehow I just said, forget it, let's just keep going. I'm going to keep adding some pencil here, and then everything's going to get outlined in the black, and we're just going to see how that goes. I wasn't having a lot of luck with the color softs. Again, that was probably just stubbornness in the type of pencils I was using. I probably should have, and again, it was just, I'm not used to this type of palette, so I struggled a bit with like color choices and stuff. So my pencil decisions weren't all that great compared to the underlying colors either. So in some ways the black outline helped a little bit because it really limited how much pencil I had to use. So oh gosh, yeah, even I'm just sitting here like, and I'm sitting here again stewing. Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I still doing this? Why am I still trying to fix this? So we're going to speed this up, and I'm going to let you guys see what I ended up doing and how it ended up turning out. How it ended up. What I wound up using, I really incorporated. One thing that worked to my advantage, I have the Artiza Vintage. Well, I don't know if it's Vintage Pastel or just Vintage. I have the Artiza Vintage Colors gel pens. Those colors, those colors matched up very well with this Vintage Pastel set. And so the gel pens were a huge help. Here I was going to try to outline these in white. With the thick layer of watercolor, I did have some trouble with the gel pens wanting to consistently flow over them and stuff. So the white didn't work, probably thank goodness, because like I said, I just ultimately went with the black outlines. But the vintage gel pens colors match well to the Watercolor Confections Vintage Pastel. So I will have links to both. Why am I just paused? I'm probably crying right here. I'm sure I was like raging. My husband had come in here to check on me because he could tell I was losing it. So, but like I said, what was there to do? Either give up or just keep on keeping on. But you'll see me use the gel pens. I also have a Prismacolor gold paint pen that I hadn't used in an age, in probably 3 or 4 years, and it still works. You'll see me use that on the watch. I end up using some liquid pearls. All the various mediums I used really helped save this picture, and so you'll see those kind of come into play. But I am going to speed this up so you guys can see it actually improve over time. So it turned into an experiment, and I said, well, what's going to happen if I outline everything in the black? What happens if I just add the gel pen and the liquid pearl and the gold pen, and let's just play with a bunch of stuff. I play with gel pens, but let's just play with a bunch of stuff I don't typically play with and see what happens, because Lord knows I can't do much more to wreck this page. So here we go, and then I'm going to do the final show and tell there at the end. All right, so here we are. Um, I don't want to rip it off and throw it in the fire. I don't want to rip it out and throw it in the fire now. Um, it's growing on me. I think honestly the thing that bothers me the most is the how thick the black outline was. I wish I had taken the time to check which pit pen I had and go with a thinner line. Even using the vintage gel pens would have given me a better looking outline than this, I feel like it would have been at least a little more natural looking. So but the black does definitely make it pop out from the background more, whereas had I just left it as is, the line art would have been a little bit faded. So I feel like what I did was good, but it wasn't the best thing I could have done. And so now I realize that obviously the black outline I think bothers me more than anything else. However, it looks great around the watch itself. And the watch itself turned out great. I was really pleased with it. Like I said, ultimately I didn't use a ton of pencil on this. I ended up mostly just using these came, I think they came with some of the Prismacolor markers I own. I bought a set. Where's the big one? Okay. There it is. I think these came with some of my alcohol markers, but it's a metallic gold. I have it in the gold. I have a little one that wasn't working so well. You could see I did it on the edges, and then I used the thicker one gently on the inside. I also have them in silver. I had those for a number of years. They have a very strong smell to them, but if you want a gold, just kind of a, dull, not a dull shine, but like just not a super big shine, I think that pen works great for that. I was trying to decide which liquid pearl I liked best, and I actually best. I was trying to say two things at once. What I liked best with this color, and it ended up being the bisque color. That worked really well for the pearls on the thing. I briefly thought about doing them around the edge here, but instead opted to go with the gel pens that I was using, which is kind of this gold yellow color that you can see here, and then kind of a darker version of the suede that was on the vintage cards, so like a dark brown. And I thought those actually worked really well for the watch. And one thing you didn't see me add is the glossy accents on the actual face of the watch, but that turned out. I was really nervous about doing that because I figured, I had salvaged quite a bit of it, and then I was worried it was going to make like the ink run or something. And fortunately it didn't do that, but was still nervous about it. And so yeah, no, don't hate it. I don't absolutely love it, but I don't hate it either. This is, I guess if anything, I'm satisfied with this because I was able to salvage it instead of just giving up. And a lot of that, like I said, was just being tired, lazy, not in the mindset to be careful like I normally am. And that's what led to a lot of pretty much all the mistakes I made on here, was just not being careful about doing stuff. So but like I said, this is also a lesson in that I can salvage something and make it look pretty good. So there you go. Little bit different video than I've done recently. Hopefully this weekend I will end up with a less intense picture for me. I'm thinking I'm going to color out of the new Joshua Dunbar book this weekend. I don't know if it'll be a color and chat or a speed color or what, but I do want to color out of that, at least one picture out of that this month. So if I don't do it this weekend, I'll do it the next, but we'll see. Alright, so I should be back hopefully on Friday with a few books I have that are coming in that I purchased before I realized everything was gonna go the way it did. And then, like I said, this weekend I'll have some sort of speed color, or I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So, hope you guys, well, I wouldn't say enjoy watching me screw up a page, but hopefully maybe this gives you some ideas. If you've run into similar issues with your pages, maybe this will help, you also take a pause and just think, okay, there's got to be some way I can hopefully salvage this page. So and given that I don't believe this page is in the Grains of Gold book, this was the only version of it I had to work with. I really just didn't want to call it gone forever and just call it a day, and I'm really glad I didn't. I am glad I persevered and stuck with it, though it was hugely stressful, and I am glad to be done with it. Anyway, thanks guys for watching, and bye for now.